What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to do another Earth 1 series, and this time we're going to pick up with Wonder Woman. Now, guys, remember, when it comes to Earth 1 comics, they do not take place in the main DC universe. They actually take place in a different universe. And so with that being said, a lot of these stories could be told differently because when it came to Earth 1 comics, it gave writers a tad bit more freedom to do what they want to do with those characters. So like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Teen Titans, and Green Lantern as well. Now, with that being said, we covered Earth 1 Superman, and honestly, till this day, I still say that was one of the best Superman series we had in a very long time. Now, with that being said, we actually gonna cover Wonder Woman. Now, her Earth 1 series did come with a lot of mixed reviews at first, and I did hear this series does get better as you kind of read through each volume, but I do know, like, when it first came out and Earth 1 Volume 1 for Wonder Woman came out, there were a lot of mixed reviews on it. But of course, I felt like because it's Grant Morrison and Grant Morrison kind of writes his stories a tad bit differently, a lot of people weren't used to this kind of new version of Wonder Woman and kind of going back in time to the golden age of the character, because that was his goal with this character, to kind of go back to the golden age a tad bit, but also kind of do some things a tad bit different. And if you know about the golden age Wonder Woman, you're going to see some things from that time being brought into this story, but of course some things being different because it's Grant Morrison having more freedom to tell the origin of Wonder Woman on Earth 1. And really, you have Grant Morrison actually begin working on the origin of the Amazons. And what I mean is that we actually do pick up with Hercules right now subduing Hippolyta. Now remember, Hippolyta is going to be the mother of Wonder Woman, but right now she's being subdued by Hercules. And we can tell this takes place way before they were able to get their Paradise Island, because this is a lady, Hippolyta, being subdued by Hercules, who is constantly yelling at her and telling her how great men are, how great Greek men are over the women, the Amazons. Now, of course, you do have Hippolyta crying out to her god. And of course, her god would be Aphrodite, and I really hope I pronounced that correctly. I really did try to practice. But either way, you do have Hippolyta calling out to her god, hoping that her god will give her a way to break free and help her fellow Amazons. And of course, you do have Aphrodite tell Hippolyta, you need to grab Hercules' girdle. If you're able to actually grab that, he's no longer protected. That was given to you to protect you, but of course he took that from you and you must now take that back. And when you do, he'll be unprotected. And so while Hercules was not paying attention, she was able to grab that back, and of course it left Hercules unprotected. Now with him being unprotected, of course, it led to her being able to go ahead and kill off Hercules. So right off the bat, Hercules is no longer on Earth 1. Now with that being said though, you do have her also being able to free the other Amazons who were locked up in cages. But as soon as she did that, the other Greek men who were kind of following Hercules, they see what she has done. They see that she was able to actually grab the girdle. And of course, they're like, oh my God, we have to fight back. But it ends up with the Greek men actually losing that battle. Now, right after all of that right there, you do have Hippolyta asking Aphrodite to take the Amazons away, to retire them from men's world. And of course, that means let us leave and never come back to man's world. And of course, that means they go to Paradise Island. Now, you do have Grant Morrison actually jump 1,000 years into the future, where we do see that Paradise Island is a thing. It's actually around. It does look like a paradise. But here's the thing, though. When we actually do pick up with Paradise Island, It is actually the moment we see that Wonder Woman is being put on trial, like she did something wrong. But the question is, though, what did she do? Because when we actually pick up with her, she's in chains and she's bound, and she's being walked up to her mother to be put on trial, which tells us she did something wrong. But the question is, though, what did she do wrong? So we jumped over a lot of information, which of course, that means that we now have to go back to kind of get that information to basically figure out what did Diana do to tick off her mother and to basically come back bound and in chains as well. And really, Grant Morrison doesn't take that long to kind of give us the information we need to basically understand why in the world Diana is on trial. And you have Hippolyta tell us that the reason why she's on trial right now because she left Paradise Island and she went into man's world. Because you have to remember, when it comes to Paradise Island, it's closed off from the rest of the world. It cannot be truly found that easily. And so if someone does find it, it's one, pure luck, or two, they had the right methods to actually find the place. Because again, Hippolyta wanted the Amazons to retire from man's world. So they're on Earth, but of course, they're in a location where you just can't get to so easily. And so Diana broke the law for the Amazons. Number one law. You are not allowed to leave Paradise Island to go to man's world. And she did that. And so that's why she's on trial. And of course, you do have Hippolyta calling in the Fates. And of course, the Fates are kind of like the people who kind of help judge different people on Paradise Island and try to figure out what they did was actually true or not to their actual destiny, their fates. But also you have Hippolyta bring out the lasso of truth. Of course, we all know the lasso of truth basically makes someone tell the truth. But you have Diana say, I don't need none of this to tell you the reason why I did what I did. And so, of course, this is going to lead into the story on why Diana is actually been put on trial for. And so we do jump back a couple of days ago where we actually do pick up with Wonder Woman meeting up with a character known as Althea. Now, Althea is the teacher to Diana. I say one of the many teachers, but of course, this is the only one we actually get to meet. Now, Althea is actually teaching Diana how to use the purple ray gun. Now, the reason why the purple ray gun is being brought into this storyline is because it's going to be seen again down the road. But the reason why it's being brought up right now because Wonder Woman found a deer, and his deer name is Dendra. And every 100 years, it basically gets injured. And so that is where the purple ray gun comes in, because the purple ray gun has the ability to heal up humans or animals back to perfect health. And so every 100 years, Diana has to use the purple ray gun to kind of heal this deer Dendra up. Now, while you have Diana doing that to the deer, you have Althea kind of being amazed on how great Diana is when it comes to the purple ray gun. And that information right there is very important because it seems like Diana is the only one besides Althea knowing how to use the purple ray gun to almost perfect level. Now, with that being said, you do have Diana bring up the idea about the competitions. Now, the competitions on Paradise Island, it happens every year. The problem is, though, Diana is not allowed to join the competitions. And the reason why, because of her extra abilities. This is Grant Morrison telling us right off the bat that by this point, Diana already has her powers, and that's why she cannot join the competition. Because if she did, it would not be fair for the other Amazons who are fighting in that competition, like Mala, the champion, the person that has been winning every single year on the island. Now, with that being said, you do have Diana also say that she will play her particular role, and that role will come out down the road as we continue on in the story. Now, of course, you do have Diana go find her mother, Hippolyta. And we also see that Hippolyta is right now looking into the magical spear, this mirror that basically gives her the ability to look at man's world. And of course, when she does, man's world is still struggling. Man's world is falling apart. Man's world, has constant war left and right. And so it's really Hippolyta looking at man's world and saying to herself that she did a great thing by taking the Amazons to Paradise Island. Now, with that being said, though, you also have Diana go to her mother, and this brings up an argument. And that argument is about the idea that Diana wants to join the competitions. She wants to show that she is an amazing Amazon, that she is strong. But like I said earlier, Hippolyta does not want her daughter to join, because if her daughter does join, it will not be a fair match. That basically Diana's going to win very easily because she does have her extra abilities, her powers. Now, with that being said, you have Grant Morrison easily slide in the origin of Diana. And the reason why I say that, because Diana does have a lot of different origins on how she came to life. But basically, you have Grant Morrison say, for this Earth 1 universe, her origin is the idea that basically her mom made her out of clay. And when her mom made her out of clay, the gods brought that clay to life, and bam, you now have Diana. You have your Wonder Woman, which is a great thing for Hippolyta. The problem is, though, Diana wants to fight in the competition, and her mother is continuing to say no. And it seems like her mother is trying to hide this dark secret, and that dark secret will not come out until the very end. But of course, once they argue a few more pages, the argument is cut, it's done, because you basically have Hippolyta say, you are not allowed to join the competition, and that is it. Now, we actually do pick up later on that night where you have the Amazons right now celebrating. They're having a party. And it really seems like this party is the way to kind of pre-celebrate the trials, the competition that's going to come to Paradise Island in the morning or the next day. But either way, while you have the Amazons just celebrating, having a good time, well, that is the moment you have Diana appear, but she's wearing the lion head of Hercules, what Hercules wore back in the very beginning of this storyline. Now, with that being said, the Amazons are unable to actually see Diana. So what they see is just some lady, some Amazon right now wearing the lion head. They can't see her face. Now, you do have Hippolyta kind of tell us that she's very upset on whoever it is right now wearing the mask of Hercules, because that mask of Hercules shows the dark past of the Amazons. And so, of course, with this person, which is Diana, wearing the mask of Hercules, it makes a lot of Amazons very upset. And so you have Hippolyta kind of tell her people, go get her. Go get that person, whoever is wearing the mask of Hercules. The problem is, though, she's too fast. Because remember, Diana already has her powers. And so she was able to get away so fast because she has that extra speed in her that other Amazons don't have. Now, we do get this brief conversation between Nubia and Mala. And honestly, this conversation does give us a lot more information. And what I mean by that is you have Mala tell us that this is not the first time Diana had wore the Hercules mask at a festival or some kind of celebration. Like, it's been happening before, but every single time they try to chase her down, she gets away. And so they're unable to figure out who is the person wearing the Hercules mask. Now, you also have Nubia actually tell us that, or kind of hint at the idea that she remembers, not remembers, but she knows who is in the Hercules mask, which would make sense because she is the right-hand woman to Hippolyta. She basically is on Hippolyta's side all the time. And so it would make sense that she would know who is kind of in the Hercules mask, because she even says, I am devoted to my queen. but she also remembers the perfume as on the flowers that Diana is dropping. Now, this kind of leads into Grant Morrison working his way to the point where Diana is going to leave Paradise Island and go to man's world. And of course, the reason why I say that, because while you have Diana kind of walking around the island, the shore of the island, she begins to see different pieces that belongs to a plane. Now, one of those pieces is obviously an American flag that was kind of painted on a plane. But either way, as she's walking around and finding these different pieces, of course, that leads into the moment she finds Steve Trevor. Now, yes, I do know some fans out there are going to be upset with the idea that Steve Trevor is black, but honestly, who cares? It's a story. He's not real. Anyways, though, you do have Steve Trevor appear. And yes, he is injured and he passed out. And it leads to Diana wondering what in the world should she do to help this man out. Now, the next section really does jump back and forth between the past and the present. In the present day, you have Hippolyta calling up people to the stand who have basically witnessed the actions of Diana to see what she did was right or wrong when she left for man's world. Now, the first person she did calls up is Althea. Now remember, Althea was kind of like this teacher to Diana in a way. And she was kind of teaching Diana different things, but mainly the purple ray gun. Now, like we saw earlier, Diana can use the purple ray gun better than anybody else on the island, probably better than Althea herself. But of course, it's Althea coming up to the stand to basically say that Diana stole the purple ray gun, which of course makes sense because just a moment ago, she found Steve Trevor. And with her finding Steve Trevor and he's kind of injured, she needs some kind of way to heal him. But here's the thing though, because Steve Trevor is a man is not allowed to be on the island. And so, of course, Diana hid Steve Trevor somewhere safe on the island. And so she had to take the ray gun from Althea to go use on Steve Trevor. Now, of course, once you have Diana go back to Steve Trevor and try to use the purple ray gun, we do learn a few things here. One of the things we do learn right off the bat that there is a language barrier, which of course would make sense because with the Amazons living in Greek for one, but two, being alive for thousands and thousands of years, that other languages were formed over that 1,000 years. And so, of course, it would make sense that there would be a language barrier with Steve Trevor speaking English. Now, of course, it is Diana kind of also being able to pick up on the language very quickly, but not very fast enough where it's like, oh, they can now have a full-on conversation. Instead, it's kind of like, oh, I can get some words you're saying, but not all the words. Now, the second thing we also come to find out that basically the purple ray gun does not work on Steve Trevor, which it does work earlier on the Amazons and also the deer, but not on Steve Trevor. And that right there is a problem because right now he's injured. He needs to go back to his home country, which is America, to get some help. And so you do have Diana wondering, how can she get this man back to America to basically get him help? Because right now, if he's found on the island by another Amazon, they're going to kill him. Like literally, they're going to kill him. And so it's her wondering, what can she do to save this man's life? Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with the competition. Now, remember, this competition is a huge celebration that apparently happens what seems like every single year on Paradise Island. Now, with that being said, though, you do have a lot of Amazonians coming here for this celebration to compete in the competition. Now, with that being said, that is the moment you have Diana reappear. But when she does reappear, she's wearing the Hercules mask. Now, remember, the Hercules mask is a huge thing for the Amazons because at the very beginning of this video, we saw Hippolyta being able to defeat Hercules while he was wearing that mask. And so she took the lion's mask to show kind of like a trophy of what the Amazons did to get to this point. And so to have Diana wearing the mask of Hercules to other Amazonians is kind of like, oh my God, how dare you wear that mask? But remember, it seems like certain people kind of know what's going on. Like this whole entire thing of her wearing the mask is a show. And the reason why I say that is because you do have Diana reappear with the mask of Hercules, and she does challenge Mala, the champion. Remember, Mala is the person who has always been winning this competition every single year. And so, of course, it's kind of like, I want to challenge you. Now, you also have Diana also call Mala Wonder Woman because she is technically the champion. She's the one protecting the island, and she's the one that has all the prizes for winning every single year. Now, with that being said, though, while you have Mala and Diana fighting, we kind of find out Mala knows this is a show. It's a show done by Hippolyta and other people because it's kind of a way to keep the people happy or keep the people knowing that they have a protector, which is Mala. And so with this being a show, Diana is supposed to lose. She's supposed to lose to Mala every single year, but she doesn't this time. She actually defeats Mala, and Mala gets ticked off because Mala says, Diana, you know this is not how it's supposed to go. And you have Mala actually unmask Diana to the entire group of people, and they're all like, oh my God, this person that we have been chasing down for years and years and years is Diana, the daughter of the queen. What in the world is going on? But with her being able to actually defeat Mala, she's now the champion. Now, of course, everyone is shocked by this. They're very shocked to see that basically Diana is now the new champion because she did challenge Mala and she did defeat Mala. But remember, at this point in her life, everyone knows that Diana has powers, that Diana has extra abilities. And with those extra abilities, it's not a fair fight for anybody when they fight against Diana. And so, of course, you have the crowd upset. But because she actually won the competition, she's now the new champion. Now, with Diana actually winning this competition, Diana does get the invisible plane. Of course, that plane did belong to Mala, but Mala is no longer the champion. And so now with Diana being the champion, that plane goes over to her. Now, on top of that as well, you have Hippolyta ticked off. She's mad at her daughter for what she did. She's like, why? Why are you doing this? To my chambers right now. Let's go. Now, this leads into a conversation between Diana and Hippolyta. Now, this is Hippolyta very upset with the idea of what Diana did, because it's basically Diana breaking all kinds of traditions to do something new. Now, for Hippolyta, it seems like she's acting more like people do in men's world. And so with that, you have Diana say, no, I just want to be my own person. I'm tired of being forced to be something that I don't want to be. Because to Hippolyta, with Diana being the Hercules, she's supposed to lose every single time. She's supposed to submit to Mala every single time. But of course, this time she did not. And of course, it's breaking a lot of tradition. So it's Hippolyta being upset with Diana. Now, with that being said, you have Hippolyta realize there is some kind of scent on Diana. Now, right before she kind of says that, she does also show Diana her actions are very similar to how people act in men's world. And so that is the moment you have Hippolyta show Diana an image of man's world, where of course right now you have sex workers, drugs, war, all these different things. Look how they treat their women. It's horrible. She's showing her what man's world looked like, and Diana's action is very similar to how people act in man's world. Now, with that being said, though, it is also Diana once again saying, I just want to be my own person. Now, as she is leaving, Hippolyta, like I said earlier, recognizes a scent on Diana, a scent that she has not smelled in a very long time. And of course, it's a scent of a man. Now, Diana knows with her basically upsetting her mother, she knows she has to leave now for man's world. And so that is why she won the invisible plane. That is why she defeated Mala, so that she can get the plane and to help Steve Trevor get back to man's world so that he can get some kind of medical help. Because right now he's badly injured. But with Hippolyta realizing what that scent was, which was a man, she basically sent an army of Amazons to go kill off Steve Trevor, but to also capture her daughter, Wonder Woman. But of course, by the time the Amazons have basically arrived to capture Diana and Steve Trevor is on the plane and Diana is about to fly off in the plane. Now you do have Mala, her dear friend, or really I should say, her lover, try to talk to her and say, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? You and I are supposed to be together forever. Why are you doing this? But it's also Diana saying, I have no choice. I have to go. I have to leave. And so she does. Now, of course, while she's trying to leave, you do have the Amazons try to bring her down. The problem is, though, this plane, it was built so well in different areas that basically it's really hard for the Amazons to be able to actually bring the plane down. And so, of course, they're unable to actually bring the plane down. And so Diana and Steve Trevor are able to leave. They are able to leave Paradise Island. And so now she may begin her adventure in man's world, but to also find help for Steve Trevor. Now, this actually does lead into Mala and a few Amazons going to Hippolyta very upset with what Diana did. Now, of course, with Diana doing what she did, they want to go after Diana. They want to capture Diana and to bring her back in for what she did. Now, of course, Hippolyta says, I have never sent anybody out beyond the storms that surround Paradise Island. So why would I send you guys out there to chase her? No, I am going to talk to the mother of monsters. And when I do, we'll basically find a way to bring Diana back here, but also Steve Trevor as well. Now, we actually do see Diana and Steve Trevor right now traveling to man's world. Now, this is the moment where you have Grant Morrison kind of show us that basically Diana is getting better with the idea of actually being able to speak English, which is a huge thing because earlier she could not speak English. There was that language barrier, but now it seems like that barrier is breaking. It seems like she's able to pick up on the language of English very quickly. And that right there is actually very important because now it seems like she'll be able to actually communicate with Steve Trevor. Now, when she does bring Steve Trevor to the hospital, it's hilarious because you have all these people looking at her kind of confused, like, hey, why in the world are you carrying that man like that? And she's all like, hey, this man named Steve Trevor needs help right now. And of course, you have the doctors like, okay, we'll take him. But like, what happened to him, though? Like, do you know what happened to this man? Now, getting back over to Hippolyta and Nubia, you do have Hippolyta and Nubia actually paying a visit to the mother of the Gorgons. Now, this is actually very important because this is Hippolyta basically recruiting Medusa to go after Diana, but to also do justice in man's world. And that justice is Steve Trevor, because it's really Hippolyta blaming Steve Trevor for doing something to her daughter to basically make Diana wanting to leave Paradise Island to take Steve Trevor back to man's world. And so Medusa is going to be one of the bad guys of this storyline. Now, we actually do jump back over to the hospital scene. Now, when we do, we actually do pick up with Diana right now, basically talking to the doctor. Now, she's very upset because the doctor will not let her actually help save Steve Trevor. He wants her gone, which of course kind of makes sense because To him, she's not a doctor. Also, that language barrier, even though Diana is able to pick up more words in English, she still kind of struggles here and there. Now, with that being said, though, you do have Diana wondering, how does men world work? Because right now it seems like men are in charge and women are just assistants to men, and that is it. And of course, to her, it seems like that's all they should be. And so she's very confused on why the nurses are not in there helping the doctor save Steve Trevor. Like, what's happening right now? What's going on? The doctors are men and the nurses are women. This seems very wrong. On top of that, when she looks around and she sees other female characters, she sees females right now, their bodies not being perfect. And this is not Grant Morrison body shaming. It's not even Diana body shaming. It's really more saying, look where she came from. She came from an island where Amazons were fit. They were able to do a lot of different things. And when I come here, the females and the men, their bodies are not in top fit shape. What's happening here in men's world? Are you guys sick here? And really, it's Grant Morrison saying, look how the world looks like right now, where basically we are consuming bad things to make us sick. And we're not trying to consume things that make us better. And so when Diana comes here, she's like, oh my God, y'all are sick. This is wrong. And so she begins to wander around the hospital. And so you do have Diana kind of begin to look around the hospital. And when she does see a lot of patients. She does see a lot of people who are sick. And she's wondering, why are these people sick? What's wrong with them? Why are you guys not helping these people out? It's her wondering what's really happening right now here in man's world. Because right now it seems like man's world cannot basically take care of their own people. What's happening right now here? And so with that being said, you do have Diana try to help out the different people who are sick in the hospital. And of course, she does feel some kind of special bond with a lady who's basically on her deathbed. But right after that, she begins to yell at the nurses and kind of wonder, what are you guys even doing right now here in man's world? Like, you have all these people here who are sick. Why are you not trying to do more to basically help them no longer be sick? There's so much pain and agony and all different stuff happening right now. What in the world is going on? And so she's very upset where basically she leaves. She leaves crying because when she came to man's world, it's right now showing what her mom said is basically true. Now, of course, when she does leave the hospital, well, that is the moment she is confronted by the military. Now, the reason why the military was actually called here is for Steve Trevor. And you'll see what I mean down the road as we're covering this storyline. So you're like, yes, they're here for her as well, but mainly because of Steve Trevor. Now, with the military being here, you have the military tell her, you can't leave. Like, stand down, come with us, because right now we have no idea who you are. You're this random lady who just brought Steve Trevor back to America on a plane that we have never seen in any other country across the world. So basically, we need you to come with us to figure out what to do with you. Now, of course, when she looks at the military, her idea is this right here. They are the sons of Ares, the god of war, because the military literally means war. They go fight war. And of course, Ares is the god of war. And so she's kind of like, no, you men, you people here in man's world, all you do is fight, yell, kill each other. You don't try to actually help each other. So why should I basically listen to you? And how can you think that you can actually stop me? Wonder Woman. Well, really, she says Diana. But either way, she's like, you cannot stop me. You cannot defeat me. And so she's able to kind of push her way through the military. And honestly, they can't do much to her. They really can't even try to stop her, because even if they try, they won't actually accomplish anything at all. Now, we do jump back to the present day, where we actually do pick up with Hippolyta telling Diana to step down. Like the trial's still going on and it's time for the next witness. And the next witness is going to be a lady known as Beth Candy. Now, Beth Candy is a lady that Diana met actually in Man's World. Now, with that being said, though, when it comes to Beth Candy, she is showing the Amazons that basically not every woman needs that perfect body. Because when you look at an Amazon, they are basically your fit woman. They are fit to shape and all that. They can do all these different things. But when it comes to Beth Candy, she's like, no, I'm not fit, but I still love my body. And so it's her kind of representing the idea of you can still be a hot woman or somebody you can love no matter how you actually look. And that's why Beth Candy is here, personally for me. Now, with that being said, though, you do have Beth Candy explain how she met Diana. And of course, the way she actually met Diana while Diana was still in Man's World was when Diana was basically traveling back to go home to Paradise Island. Because after her run-in with the military, and that did not go well, she basically wanted to go back home. On her way home, there was a bus. And of course, this bus was full of ladies who were on their way to their spring break trip. Now, with that being said, one of those ladies was Beth Candy. The problem was, though, it was a raining night, and of course the roads are slick and the bus began to fall and tip over, and of course about to fall over a cliff. Luckily, you had Diana step in and basically save Beth Candy and her fellow ladies. Now, when all that had happened, though, it did lead into the idea of Beth Candy and Diana building a bond, building a friendship. But you also have Diana say, listen, let me help you guys out. And you have Beth say, listen, just take us to the next town over or where we're trying to actually go. And of course, you have Diana actually accept to do that for her. Now, back in the present day, you do have this moment where you do have Beth Candy actually stand up to Hippolyta, which honestly, I was kind of like, yo, you bold, girl, you bold. But basically, you have Beth Candy tell Hippolyta that how dare you send monsters and storms at your daughter because you're trying to restore her, as you say. But in reality, you should be proud of the woman you have. But the reason why she left this island is because everything you were basically doing to her. Is Beth Candy trying to show Hippolyta, look at what you did. Look at what happened. Look at basically the failure of you trying to give your daughter this perfect life that you assume that you were giving to her. Now, getting back into the past, we actually do pick up with Steve Trevor once again. Now, when we actually do pick up with Steve Trevor, it's Steve Trevor finally recovering from his injuries. But of course, he's met by his bosses. So the higher-ups in military ranks are there to talk to him about the idea of Paradise Island, because it seems like he was assigned to find this island, to go out there and find it. But of course, they want to know, did you actually find the island? If you did, where's your plane? On top of that, do you know this woman? Because they have video proof of Wonder Woman. They're like, hey, do you know her? Who is she? Where she's from? Where's the island? Where's the plane? They're throwing a lot of questions at this man all at once. But of course, it's kind of like Steve Trevor kind of walking the line with the idea of not trying to tell his higher ups basically what he knows, which honestly is not much, because when he arrived to Paradise Island, he was so badly injured, he couldn't even walk. It was all Diana helping him out and trying to get him back onto his feet. Now, you do have Diana actually appear back at the hospital that, of course, Steve Trevor is at. But the reason why she is here because she wants to know how in the world Steve Trevor was able to find Paradise Island. It's not something that people can find so easily. And so with that, there has to be a reasoning on how in the world this man was able to find Paradise Island. And so, of course, you do have the military tell Steve, listen, we got a hotel for you and her to basically have a conversation. Use the hotel room, stay there as long as you need to get all the information we need to learn more about where in the world she came from. Now, of course, once they do get back to the hotel room, you have Steve Trevor basically tell Diana, do not give any more information to these guys at all. Like, don't give anything to them at all. If they ask, just do not answer. If you do answer, just give them the runaround. Now, of course, while he is telling her that, he's also saying, I want to give you a proper thank you. Now, for Diana, a thank you is a tad bit different in her culture. Where in her culture, it's more kind of like submitting yourself to the person who basically helped you or saved you. Kind of like saying they're now in charge of you. And so, of course, when she does bring out a certain kind of item out, he's kind of like, yo, what is this? Excuse me? Hold up. I want to tell you thank you. Normally. Now, you do have Diana go over to Beth Candy, and you do have Diana tell Beth Candy what basically happened between her and Steve Trevor. And of course, it is Diana not truthfully understanding why Steve Trevor acted the way he acted, which of course, he was very concerned on why in the idea Diana did that to him. And of course, it's the idea of a culture barrier. Now, you have a language barrier where, of course, that's no longer the problem because Diana is now able to properly speak English to everyone around her. And so the language barrier is still kind of there, but it's also mostly gone. But now you have the culture barrier. And the culture barrier is a very huge thing where basically it's one person having a hard time actually understanding someone else's culture. And with the culture barrier being there, of course, it's Diana not understanding Steve Trevor's culture. Now, we can't just say Steve Trevor's culture is America's culture. No, because America is supposed to represent the melting pot of different cultures. And so Steve Trevor's culture could be completely different from Diana or America. Now, either way, though, you do kind of get this little section where you have the ladies and Beth Candy kind of give Diana a complete makeover. And what I mean by that is they kind of just change her outfit to kind of fit the early days of Wonder Woman. Not really the early days, more kind of like my early days when I got into the character back in the early 2000s. But either way, they do change her outfit. Now, of course, right after they do change her outfit, well, that is the moment you have Diana realize what her mother did. Now, remember, her mother basically had released Medusa. And with Medusa being out there, of course, when people look into her eyes, they turn into stone. And so, of course, people left and right are turning into stone. Now, remember, Hippolyta said, I want you to go out there and get justice for us. Of course, that justice was towards Steve Trevor, because with Steve Trevor being a man and basically arriving on Paradise Island, that justice needs to be done. He needs to pay for what he did for coming to Paradise Island. And so with that, you have Medusa just going out there, turning people into stone left and right, including Steve Trevor. Now, right after Medusa, we come to find out that basically Hippolyta had also sent out a small army of Amazons to go get Diana. Now, of course, the leader of that group is Mala. Now, remember, Mala is supposed to be what seems to be a close lover to Diana, but also the person that Diana defeated in that tournament. Now, with all that being said, you don't have Diana actually fight against Medusa, nor fight against Mala and a small army of Amazons. Instead, she basically submit herself to have a fair trial. She says some sort of law, and with this law, it basically means that if someone says it, they have the right to have a fair trial. And this leads us right back into the present day. Now, of course, on their way back to the plane that is basically going to take them back to Paradise Island, you do have Mala ask Diana one question. And that question was, why did you do this? Why did you reveal to the world about Amazons? Because to the world, they had no idea about us. And of course, it's Diana saying, we shall no longer hide from man's world. It's time for us to come out into man's world. Now, of course, back in the present day, we do come to find out who is the next witness that Hippolyta is going to call to the stand. And of course, the final person is Steve Trevor. And Steve Trevor, remember, was turned to stone by Medusa. But thanks to Diana being able to kind of fix the purple ray gun to kind of fit the ways of man's world, she was able to use the ray gun this time to actually turn Steve Trevor from stone back into his regular human form. But with him being back to normal, it's now time for him to go on trial. It's time for him to basically, tell his side of the story. Now, this leads into the moment where you have Steve Trevor basically explain to Hippolyta and Diana why he came to Paradise Island. And what Steve Trevor says is this right here, that apparently back in World War II, the German soldiers found an island. And when they found this island, they thought they found a piece of Atlantis or some kind of ancient culture. Now, of course, they wanted to conquer this island. But when they tried to conquer the island, they were confronted by no other than a group of soldiers. And these soldiers were able to push the German soldiers off their island and sent the Germans packing back home. Now, it sounds like what happened was German soldiers did find Paradise Island, but they lost to the Amazons. Now, with that being said, though, you do have Steve Trevor tell Diana and also tell Hippolyta that they don't have to worry, that basically he is not going to share anything at all. And the reason why, because when it comes to the Amazons and the African Americans, their origins are kind of very similar, their history. And what he says this right here, with the Amazons being slaves to Greek men and African Americans being slave to, of course, white men, that they're very similar, being slaves. And of course, they had to fight for their freedom. And so with Steve Trevor, he's kind of like, I don't want to tell the world about you guys, because if I do, it could lead to more problems down the road where rich men, powerful men might try to enslave you guys. And we do not need that. It's Steve Trevor saying, I am on your side. Now, this is where things get even juicier. I mean, y'all, it gets even juicier because you didn't have Diana basically say, there is one last witness, myself. Now, this is Diana saying, Mom, I do not believe about my origin. I do not believe that I was basically made out of clay and then the gods brought me to life and gave me powers. I do not believe that at all. It's her literally saying, you are hiding my true origin. And if that's the case right there, you need to tell me the truth. Now, right before Hippolyta does that, though, you also have Diana say, also, Mom, it's your magical spear, that mirror that brought the German soldiers here to our island, because it has some kind of magic to it where other people in man's world are able to detect it. And so with them being able to detect it, that's why the Germans came here, because they had detected your magical spear. And so that is why they were under attack. But getting back to the main point of this section, it is Diana saying, I do not believe that I was made out of clay. So what is my true origin story? And then she puts her mom on a stand. And with her mom being on a stand, her mom has to hold the lasso of truth and tell the true origin of Diana. Now, this leads into the big moment where you have Hippolyta tell Diana, listen, you came from my womb. You are my child. You were not made from clay. Matter of fact, your father is Hercules. And you have Diana kind of like, wait, what? And you have Hippolyta say, yes, your father is Hercules. He is your father. And the reason why I did this is because basically I want to make sure that when it comes to his line, his future kids, it would have no sons. It would just be daughters left and right. That is why you are his child, to get revenge against him, but to also be my weapon for man's world. Like, she basically made Diana to be a weapon for man's world, to destroy man's world, to get payback against man's world. Now, here comes the next messed up moment, though, because you now have Hippolyta crying in tears, feeling so sad. She said, okay, you know what? I lied to you, but the fates say that I must pass on my right. That means now I must give you the right to become the queen of Paradise Island. Like, it's now Hippolyta just trying to pass off her role as queen of Paradise Island to her daughter, just like that, because she lied to her daughter, but she also lied to the Amazons as well, because it seems like they had no idea that Diana was the daughter of Hercules. Now, there is a reason why you had Hippolyta do this, because she knows if Diana becomes the queen of the Amazons, then she's unable to leave Paradise Island, which means that Diana will be stuck on Paradise Island forever alongside with her mother. But that is the moment you have Nubia said, no, you can't do that. You cannot just say you're no longer the queen of Paradise Island. When you basically took that role, you have to serve that role for your entire life, eternal life. You just can't pass that role on. And so it's really Nubia saving Diana, like, no, hold up, stop right now. You are not about to trap your only child to be next to you the entire time because she wants to explore man's world. But you want her to be your weapon against man's world. That is not fair, not going to happen. Now, the story does wrap up very quickly, where basically you do have Diana tell Steve Trevor it's time for man's world and Paradise Island to unite as one, to come together. It's time for man's world to learn more about Paradise Island. Now, you do have Steve warn her like, hey, listen, you're going to have a lot of battles where people will try to make fun of you and use you for different ways. But of course, you have to win those battles. And it's Diana saying, I'll be okay. I will be ready. It's time for us to unite. And so she goes back to man's world. And of course, you have everyone looking up into the sky and seeing, oh my God, there's a plane and a girl. Who's that girl? It's Diana. And she's saying, hello, man's world. And this is where volume 1 ends. Yep, that's the end of volume 1. Honestly, volume 1 was a good story. I just felt like it could have had a tad bit more action in there, but hey, whatever. Besides that, it was a good start for Wonder Woman on Earth 1. So with that being said, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. And if you do, please hit that like button down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.